Hi there, I'm Rezro, and welcome to my webcomic production series. Here I go about the process of making 3D models for characters and scenarios while also rigging and texturing them so that I can go back to uploading new chapters for my series, Extreme Superhero, and also saving myself from carpal tunnel since I can't afford to hurt myself again. I hope this series serves as an inspiration for those of you wanting to get into doing your projects. I'll leave links to tutorials that have worked for me so you can begin your path into doing your movie, video game, or anything you'd like. Well, let's begin. I use Mixamo for rigging. It helps me where I get stuck, like weight painting the shoulders and legs. Once the rig is done, you can choose an animation you'd like or just download it as is and get it right into Blender. I go to a rig I made on a previous video and take the hand setup since it's the most specialized part that I'm going to need. Here, I'm going to very quickly adjust the Mixamo armature since it tends to have some extra bones in places I don't need and change the bone names to ones I can understand better. I adjust the bones to where they make sense for the bends to happen and add the extra bones I need. Mixamo is not always perfect, so I always go into weight paint mode to adjust the parts that Mixamo missed. In this case, some weight paints weren't set up for certain bones, so I'm going to have to manually add them. Luckily for me, the legs and hands are painted, and I just need to adjust their weight paints, which is great, since that's where I struggle the most. I use the legs to measure constantly the weight paint of the hips to avoid having weird deformations. For the head, I paint it all since I'm going to animate the face with shape keys and sometimes textures. Then I just correct parts where the weight paint bleeds. I go for the final adjustment on the fingers to avoid poor displacement. For all my rigs, I have a control bone for general practice that is in charge of moving the general character and makes animating jumps, walks, and any translation you need way easier. I add these extra bones from the ankles as the IK control and these ones from the knees as the IK targets. I go to the wrist to get my IK controls and to the elbows to get my IK targets. IK targets need to be physically separate from the mesh, so the movement of the legs and arms looks natural, so I try to give them enough space to avoid issues. While in pose mode, inside your armature, go to the Properties tab on the right and down to the Bone Constraints space, or the blue bone over the stick as I like to call it, and look for the Inverse Kinematics option, well on the forearm and lower leg. Basically, the bones at the end of the chain from your shoulders and hips and set the chain length to 2. Select the IK controls to the bones positioned at the ankles and wrists, and the targets as the ones coming from the elbows and knees. I test to make sure they work properly, and you may have the same issue I have, in which they bend in weird ways. To fix this, I go to edit mode and pick all the bones on the arm, and with Shift plus N, I open the Recalculate Bone Row option, and go by every option it offers until I get my arm to look right. Then I repeat the process for the legs, and give an ample test to the rig. You know, just make it dance a little. One last thing I need to do is to add a controller for the head. I go back to my other reference rig and I copy the bone setup. I go back to bone properties and pick the drag to option for my head bone and adjust the orientation, and there we go. Here's my favorite part. When you see a rig, you usually see that they have these many colorful and interesting shapes over the character. These help identify which bones control what, and I enjoy this process a lot. I basically hide all the bones that, while they do something, they are not poseable, and color the remaining ones by sections. I have the control bone, the base bone, IK control bones, IK targets, the head control, and the rest of the bones, which I just call rotating bones. I pick from my handmade library of shapes and adjust them so they look presentable and usable for animation. This part is a little tedious since I'm basically adjusting the bones of a rig I made on another video, but I'll leave the link for the tutorial in the description. I'm using this rig since it's going to make animating my hands way faster than just letting it be or using a simple copy rotation for the finger bones. that should be it for this video. If you liked the video, I'd urge you to give it a like. If you want to see my progress on saving myself from a carpal tunnel with 3D modeling, please subscribe and turn on the bell so you get notified when I upload new videos on this series and other projects I have going on. And if you're interested in this comic project I'm working on, go to the link in the description and give Extreme Superhero a read. It's free, plus you already have 34 chapters to consume while you wait for new chapters to drop.